Great. So thank you everyone for kind of coming along this afternoon. I do appreciate that hearing kind of an hour of me talking probably is not the most enticing thing on a Friday, but I do appreciate you coming. Two talks this afternoon, as I said, both from me. One is talking about the Common Platform specification, the detail of which I go into in a moment, but it's a really important doc for me and for the Common Platform. It's really going to define exactly how the platform is supposed to work. And the second is going to be a summary of a couple of conferences that I was lucky enough to attend last month, which was DevSecCon, which is the first DevOps security conference that's kind of happened in the UK, and also Velocity, which is kind of the biggest kind of DevOps conference that kind of happens as well. So without further ado, a quick reminder of what the Common Platform is and kind of what we're doing. So we always talk about kind of infrastructure at the bottom, and that's kind of, to us, is mainly essential AWS or the providers. It's your network, your storage, your virtualization. It's all the tin and wires that underpins all the things that we build. On top of that, you've actually put your platform itself, and this is kind of where the Common Platform lives. And this is your operating system, it's your deployment pipelines, it's your logging, it's your monitoring, it's your alerting, and it's all the kind of the web service, the application service, all those kind of bits and pieces that we kind of run there as well. And for us, the Common Platform is basically it's ITV's next generation hosting platform. We had a traditional one. It worked with waterfall when you had big design up front and you could wait 4 or 8 weeks for service to arrive. But the new way we develop is agile, is iterative, and we actually need an environment that can kind of cope with that high rate of change and cope with it very safely, which is the Common Platform. And obviously on top of that we have the software, so the applications, it's your ATSs, it's your ITV players, they all sit on top of that. So, on with the show, which we have entitled How to Build a Platform in, I like powers of 2, so 1,024 easy steps. The problem we face with the Common Platform on ITV, is that, number one, it needs to continually evolve. The thing we found with the existing platform is they're basically calcified. They kind of did a document, a requirements capture 5 years ago, and that this is what ITV needs right now. They wrote it all down, they built a platform, and there was never a process to kind of keep updated. So when we kind of came along and said, oh, we need stuff that delivers more quickly than 4 weeks, there was no process to update the platform. In fact, it was this is what you've got. And when we needed a new database format or something, you couldn't do it. And it actually was basically kind of calcified and it wasn't really fit for purpose of the business. So that's on one side. We needed something that evolved quite relatively quickly, at least as fast as the development teams required. But we also wanted to kind of reduce the blast radius of change. So ITV historically has had quite a large, cumbersome change ceremony that goes all the way up to top, and people who don't really understand what they're reading go through a change and they say, yes, approve, I approve this. And it's very slow and you have to wait weeks, and if you miss the window and you miss your change window, you have to go back through the entire process. It's quite long-winded. We wanted to find a way of being able to push that process all the way down the stack to the product teams, because who better to authorize a release of ITV Player on a Friday than the owner of the ITV Player product? So how do you do that? The way we kind of come up with is basically isolated instances of the Common Platform for everything that we host. So rather than having a big shared everything platform, is what we've previously done, we actually try to isolate every single product into its own bit. So the monitoring tool for ITV Player is totally separate to the monitoring tool for ATS. If you screw up one of them, you can't affect the other one. And it basically means that risk is totally ring-fenced and isolated, and we reduce the blast radius. So lots of instances and lots of variation, and on the other side we need to accommodate a high rate of change. So actually we've got a problem there. We've got all these different instances that are all going to be slightly different, and we also need to upgrade them all quite regularly. So what's the solution to that one? Well, essentially it's a specification, but it's versioned, it's updated and released regularly, and we treat it like software. So the idea being that this specification will describe exactly how the Common Platform should behave in terms of people, process and technology at the kind of the high level. Because what I want to do with the team is not dictate exactly how they should do their jobs. I want to kind of say, this is the direction we need to get over there, and it's going to sound crap, but rather than giving a map of how to get them, give them a compass and a direction and let them kind of do their thing within kind of safe bounds. So, good place to start, I always find the beginning. A round grey circle. This is what is possible for any of us to do. These are all the things we could possibly do, but that's too much. We need to actually kind of like constrain that slightly, because somewhere over here we don't do Windows on the Common Platform at the moment. This is Windows. There's no document right now at this phase saying we can't use Windows or using AIX or using kind of FreeBSD. Nothing's stopping us. So at the very, very highest level, we want to know what we want to achieve, and for that we've created the Charter. So this is absolutely the very, very highest level document of the Common Platform, and it basically informs all the decisions that kind of come after it. So instantly it's kind of chopped off half the kind of the possibilities. And it starts with an objective. So it sounds, I'm going to say a bit wanky, but it's kind of, this is actually kind of the high-level objective of why we're even doing the common platform in the first place. It's terrible practice to read out a slide, but we shall. Maybe we should do it together. No. To design, build, and operate the next generation hosting platform of ITV's modernised applications based upon a standard set of tools and techniques. It will deliver high-quality, low-cost environments to our customers. And that's something we're trying to do. We're treating the people as customers. We need to satisfy them. They need to be really, really pleased with the quality of service we're getting in terms of the platform as well as the customer experience as well. So that's the highest level objective. That's what we're trying to do. And on top of that, we're going to add some goals. And they all end itties. If someone can come up with a better one for value other than affordability, I'm all ears, but that's the odd one out for right now. But basically, these are all the goals that I think the kind of common platform should achieve. And everything we do and every decision we make on the common platform in terms of design should satisfy one of these. And actually in the document you'll see later on, these are actually in my priority order. And actually it's basically the same here. So to me, quality is number one. Job one is quality. The quality of what we output actually basically to me means it does what you expect it to do. Under load all time, 24/7, it will do what it's expected to do. It won't suddenly fail, or when it gets into high load, it'll suddenly explode in a ball of flames. It's high quality software that's reliable. Simplicity, I'm kind of a big believer. The simplest solution is generally the best one. So if I kind of see a solution being built that's massively complicated, involves thousands of moving pieces, when actually just a shell script would have done the job, I'm going to say you're violating the simplicity goal here. Moving forward, the other ones as well, they all kind of represent it. Security is obviously very, very important to ITV. We don't want to be the next talk. Value, you can't get away from the fact we are a very lean organisation. It's something that keeps getting repeated recently. So we do need to kind of say, is that extra large instance you've just specified giving ITV the best value for money, or could it be a small? And that's where decisions, when I say start small and work up, as opposed to start big and work down, because you never go down after you've kind of gone for like a triple XL because it all works. But when it's small and the stats say go up, that's the way we should be doing that. So I say as small as possible, as large as necessary when it comes to value. Portability is a really interesting one. It has actually limited some of the kind of the cool features of cloud providers we can use. The idea is within 3 months we can actually move the common platform or common platform hosted application between cloud providers. It could go onto an on-prem private cloud we're building. It could go onto Azure or Google Cloud or AWS. We've got that kind of portability and that flexibility there as well. So those are the very highest level charter documents, and I'll kind of show you what that actually looks like later on. But then the next level down, we come on to the policies. You can see how I'm trying to like make this really exciting. So these are the high level rules, which basically outline the musts and the must nots, the shoulds and the should not, and the recommended things of the common platform. And the important thing about these is they apply across the board. These don't mention Puppet. These don't mention Nginx. They mention infrastructure, they mention platform, they mention web server. So the rules for a web server generally apply whether you're using Nginx or Apache. These are the highest level ones, so you know basically as the owner of the platform kind of how I expect you to build certain things. An example would be 6.2, platform components must be managed for a configuration management tool. So the platform engineers in the room say, well, that's obvious. Of course you'd manage your platform components through a configuration management tool. And note it doesn't mention Puppet, it just says a tool. But that's the point of the policies. It codifies and documents the really obvious stuff that people assume should happen. And we all know what happens when you make assumptions. So most of these you'll read through and go, yeah, how did that take 2 months to write that? But actually going through all the things that we actually have on the common platform, and saying, that's a really obvious thing that I didn't even think about, but it's now codified as to how we should do it. So the really high-level policies, and again, these won't change very often. These are designed to be slow-moving and sensible and kind of understandable. So you can see what I'm doing now onto the components. We're slowly kind of closing in the bounds of what we're allowed to play with. This is where it gets real. This is where the kind of fun stuff happens. This is the document that defines the list of technology we're allowed to use in the common platform. Essentially, if it's not here, you shouldn't use it without asking, because the idea is these are things that we've done R&D on, we're familiar with, we've got the professional expertise with, we've got the monitoring around it, it's supportable, we might have a support contract with a vendor. These are the tools we should be using. I always say the common platform is a list of shoulds rather than musts, so if it's not in here, you can always ask. But if you want to start using kind of Infomix on the common platform, maybe you should kind of ask us first. So,
we are.
Oh dear. Lee, you know the rules. So,
compatibility with Genesis.
Well, okay, but that's not on the common platform there, so I don't care.
I think there's a testing.
What? I don't know if you're joking or not. But no, so this is essentially it. I'm not going to read them out, definitely not going to read this lot out. But the important thing about this is the alpha release. This is 0.1 of the common platform. And I didn't want to make any sweeping changes. What I've essentially done is spoken to all the platform engineers, all the people who are currently hosting apps. So what are you doing at the moment? and there shouldn't be, I don't think, any surprises up on that wall, because it's essentially all the tools that we've been using we're familiar with. Good, okay. The important thing about the spec is, I said we treat it like software. Mr. Burnett?
Under metrics, where's Splunk fit into this?
Very good question.
Thanks.
Splunk is not currently a supported technology on the common platform.
Will it be?
Yes. So, as I mentioned at the top of the talk, we're going to version this and update it and treat it like software. So let's say we get version 1 out, and then we have the capacity in the core team to work with Simon, get Splunk in, and do all the tooling, all the monitoring, and actually say, this is now supported by the common platform. Here's how you use it. Here's the best practice. We'll release 1.1, and in the changelog, you'll see support for Splunk has been added to the common platform. Here's how you use it. Here are the modules that you can use to support it. And it means stuff doesn't sneak in through the back door. It goes in through the core team, and they have the time to get familiar with it and make sure the team are all familiar with the operating of it too. But this is definitely, it should be a codification of kind of what we've got in place at the moment. But good. So going one layer down, and this is basically when I basically kind of start to take my hands off. Standards, practices, and principles. Yeah, see, they're kind of like more. I'm trying to make this as exciting as possible. But this is essentially the day-to-day rules and best practice that we use to operate the platform. It's kind of like the obvious rules of thumbs you may use. It's like, when it comes to alerting, should I wake Stefan up in the middle of the night because a server sneezed? Probably not. But without being able to point to a document and say, this document says no, people aren't going to be able to agree. So here's an example. Every alert that interrupts someone must be urgent, important, and actionable. It's really obvious, but we've never written that down anywhere before, saying that should be the case. So an important, urgent alert and actionable alert saying this just happened. You don't need to do anything, but by the way, I've woken you up in the middle of the night to let you know that something you can't do anything about has just happened. Probably not worth doing it. So that's an example of one of the rules, but we've got rules in there about how we name things, how we monitor things, how logs should be structured. It's all kind of like, or how infrastructure should look, but it's kind of actually being like codified for the first time on the common platform. So yeah, coming up. And then really exciting stuff now, roles and responsibilities. We've talked about process, we've kind of talked about technology, the people as well. This is essentially me thinking through all the stuff that we do day to day and the stuff that people expect me to do and the stuff that the people expect the team to do. And it's all written down, so people can say, hey, I asked Stefan to do this. And well, that's actually not Stefan's job. It says here, this is what his job is, and it's not there, so you shouldn't be asking him to do that, and you shouldn't be expecting. And the same with me, it's a big list of things you can expect me to do regularly and to not do. So, for example, the core team, so for those that don't know, we've got kind of a split of engineers. They're all kind of totally capable as each other, but we have embedded engineers who work on the product teams. So, for example, Stefan's with Hub Services, he's embedded there, he's a platform engineer for Hub Services. In the middle, we've got the core team, who are kind of on secondment at the moment for various reasons, but they actually own the concept of the common platform, the specification, and they're the people who do the common components of the common platform. They do it once, they do it brilliantly, and they share it with everyone. So actually, rather than reinventing the wheel in all these different product teams, we have one place where we forge out these kind of high-quality modules. So the core team, one of their responsibilities is counsel. The core platform engineer has a responsibility to be an on-demand second opinion for any other platform engineer. It may involve offering advice, code review, or pairing. Something we often find at ITV, because we are a lean organisation, is that we don't have enough time to talk to our colleagues. We don't have time to ask for a second opinion. We don't have time to pair on the work we're doing. And we're all technical people in this room, and we understand the impact of that. This is me sneaking in through the back door, a bit of extra support for all of my engineers in the business. And it basically says here, if you're a core engineer, any time of day, one of your colleagues can tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, I need some backup. They're not going to come and do the work for you, but they'll pair with you, or they'll do a code review for you, or they'll just answer a question. And we've actually got some of John's time, 8 hours a month available to train down. For basically, John, you're going to be an extension of this kind of process. Anytime they can just give you a shout, because obviously, if you're. So that's an example of the kind of thing that goes into the principles, the standards, and the roles and responsibilities as well. Process is an exciting word. This is still in progress, or in process. Loads of process that we have on the common platform isn't really common platform specific, it's more product specific. So I think a lot of the process that I will define will be like, here's how it could look, and if you want to align with this, that's probably a good idea, because why not? But every product's different. For example, in online, the escalation procedure for the duty managers is going to be different because you already have an existing duty manager process in online. So the escalation process for the rest of the business will be different online because they have a different escalation process they want to follow. The people they need to inform will be different. The process they need to follow for notifying OBO, for example, raising an MTI, it's totally different online. So there's no point me trying to kind of cover all the edge cases as well. So that's kind of coming up. So without further ado, I present, and there's no need to applaud, but please do if you wish. The Common Platform Specification v, trips off the tongue, this one, 0.1.0-alpha. I'm going to quickly switch tabs and take you through. Because we are technical people, it's of course stored in GitHub. So this is under CP spec, is available under the ITV repo, and NMR, there's a group, I'll make sure you kind of add it onto it. And it is essentially all in there, and we're actually using the standard kind of GitHub versioning. So you actually see if you go into release, we actually have a release done through GitHub. And the idea is that actually you can raise an issue with this. If you have a question for me and say, hey Tom, the spec doesn't answer this question, I'll go away and have a think, and we'll have a think as a team, and we'll answer it, and we'll put it in there, and hopefully I'll never need to be asked that question again. And it's also a living document. When I review this every month, say, hey, our policy on this has changed, but you'll be able to see what's kind of coming in. And actually in this forum, we'll present up, hey, here's what's coming up in the next one, watch out, this is going to be a big one, or watch out, it's going to be fine. So I mentioned before, we've got our kind of component selection, we've got our charter. So if we charter, for example, here are all the utilities, very exciting. All the people who actually kind of care about this thing. So the next version of the charter will have AnyBanet there. All the kind of, and here are the kind of responsibilities that we have and all the documents. So some of it is actually quite boring, actually day to day, it probably won't affect most of you, but for some of the people that will use the common platform and the tech controllers and directors, they want to know what they're getting themselves into when they come onto the common platform. So it's different documents for different people. Same as standards and practices document. Naming, as my team will say, is one of my favourite things. There's at the beginning of a document around how we name things. Thank you, Lee. Yeah, it's very good. And what the naming format should be, why it is as well with justifications, why we're actually having this encapsulation, why we're having abstraction, and the advantages it gives. For example, monitoring and metrics. Here's a bare minimum of what we should be capturing. Most of us are already, but at least it's down in a document now. And how alerting should work as well. Yada yada yada. Kind of comes through how. Infrastructure looks in AWS, the concept of ecosystems, which some of you will be familiar with as well, and a cheat sheet document that every single product that we host should have. So, it's something like, if this goes down, the following will happen, etc., etc. It's all kind of like really obvious stuff, but it was never written down before, and now at least we've got something that we can actually kind of start working towards.
In terms of feedback, we can do pull requests if we actually want to propose changes, but should we comment on commits?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's one of the drawbacks with GitHub. It's quite hard to actually comment on an actual part of the document itself without going back to the commit.
Yeah, so I think I'm kind of open to suggestions. I think as a team we're quite open. I think you, for example, you had a kind of request for Kibana 4 by Christmas. Yeah. Probably not going to happen. But in terms of kind of that...
For Christmas.
Oh, okay. Well, you didn't specify which year, so I will guarantee you will get Kibana 4 by a Christmas. So I think that kind of stuff, there's going to be a common platform core Trello board that will have a backlog. So I think this is more a kind of a slightly more static, but there will be a requests backlog, and the core team will choose.
I was thinking more about, say, for example, the monitoring thing.
Yep.
One of the things we're doing at the moment is what should the frequency of monitoring be? And I could quickly scanning through, I couldn't see it there.
Yep.
So how would I kind of?
I think in that one, I think it does have to say like minimum every 60 seconds. Minimum.
But that kind of question,
yeah.
How do you get that into?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm kind of open to feedback into how you think that would be best. I mean, whether it's in Slack and informally, or whether actually we should have like a formal kind of question and answer. Maybe, I mean, you can raise an issue. You can raise an issue as a question, or you can tag an issue as a question, can't you? I think so. That might be an option. So I'm kind of GitHub seemed like the sensible place to put this, just for the various reasons. But I don't necessarily say it's the best.
And for things like monitoring frequency, it feels like the sort of thing you can codify in your config management scripting. So
Yeah.
if you are exposing hooks for product teams, you have to say, and here's a metric for X, then you can define that all hooked metrics get called every minute or every 2 seconds or something, and then you never have to have that conversation.
Yeah, and I think the other really important thing to mention about this is that I've tried to draw a very kind of like firm line between where my responsibility stops and where the team's responsibility. Like, so I don't want to micromanage the minutiae, the real detail, the fun stuff of how we should build these things. It's more like, I'd like a house that's 2 stories high and made of brick. But the actual kind of the layout and all that's not my job, that's the team's job. And I think that's why I was saying with that kind of that closing circle, it's basically everything that was left, that's where we can play and we can do whatever we like. So actually a lot of that kind of stuff will come out of like, it says another line there somewhere, the best documentation, for example, is clean, well-written code with tests and comments. for example. So I don't expect the team to produce reams and reams of paperwork that's instantly out of date. I'd rather have really nice, clean Puppet modules that are understandable by everyone. So it's kind of like I'm going to kind of live slightly in the documentation, policy, standards world, and then hand the baton over to the team to do the fun stuff. So now that it's actually finally released, obviously it's going to iterate a lot. Well, what's going to come next? This is, okay, I made it up, but that's kind of what the common platform looks like at the moment. There isn't really a common platform because there's been no standards. There's been nothing that says this is the common platform, and now there is that grey dot in the middle. So it could be that, you know, let's say like player browser, for example, which was the kind of the freshest thing about to kind of go out. In terms of the way we've been building stuff now on common platform, it's actually kind of way out there. It doesn't have the ecosystem approach. It doesn't have the separate things. It doesn't use Terraform. It doesn't use the latest Puppet modules or that kind of stuff. It's actually like quite way behind. And the other ones, for example, the new like CD Infinite or Deirdre that the core team are working on. We've got a product called Deirdre. Because it's being built by the core team and very familiar, it's really pretty close to how it should be. So actually the work required to say, I'm version 0.1 or I'm version 1 won't be that much. Other bits and pieces will take a while. So obviously we want to get to that and make sure we kind of keep in semi-regular kind of lockstep with the updates. That's going to be hard. I think that's going to be my biggest challenge for the platform is when I first did the Common Platform Roadshow when I took over in March, I basically got all the tech controllers and directors to agree that this spec, this upgrade process was a sensible way to solve the problem. And they all agreed back then that they would allow time in roadmaps to make sure they kind of upgrade and kind of keep track. That's going to be the real test.
They sign with blood.
No, they didn't. But the advantage I do have is that you'll work for me. So, you know, I can just tell you to do it, and they can come and talk to me if they don't give you the time. At the end of the day, ITV has recently been severely bitten by not upgrading stuff. We're currently going for a big Windows 2003 upgrade, and we were this close to having to spend about £750,000 on extra support from Microsoft because we haven't upgraded. ITV slowly realising actually it's more painful not to do regular little and often upgrades than it is to do big bang. And so the idea is the core team will do almost all of the work. All you need to do is do a tiny little upgrade, and you basically get the work of 2 other engineers for free, in theory.
So Windows 2003 upgrading to Windows 2003, or?
Yeah, from ME. No, but no, we're going to, I think, and there's still like the 2012 is the next project, but yeah. But ITV has realised that actually you can't just leave. Another one is GTVAP, which is like a 20-year-old mainframe system. There's a dot matrix printer in Southbank that's continuously printing checks, like literally like checks for Ant and Dec kind of come out, and they are replacing it. But it basically the mainframe system it was running on got so old they stopped being able to find spares on eBay, so they had to virtualize it. And now, so that's going to be the real challenge. Like actually, the upgrade between version 1. So this plan. So Q4 now. Refine and ratify. So this is 0.1. It's not finished. That's kind of the point. I'd rather get it out there, get people commenting and criticising it and kind of give me feedback. But I'd hope by the end of the year or beginning of next year to have actually V1, something I'm proud of, something I'm really say this is actually a V1 release in the tradition of open source software. And then I'm kind of saying that I think realistically it's going to take 3 to 6 months to align all of the instances of the common platform to V1. And some are going to be harder than others, like I mentioned before. It's going to be a real slog, but once everything's in line, then we can actually start looking at, say, Splunk. We've got some time. We now introduce Splunk. If everyone upgrades, everyone gets the benefit of Splunk. The other big thing that's going to push this, and I think it's going to help me, is like security. Really big thing in ITV at the moment. TalkTalk, incredibly embarrassing. It knocked a third off their shares. So if I can say the way we can upgrade our hosting platform for everything is by everyone upgrading their common platform, and they automatically inherit all this security best practice, that's quite a strong stick for me to use. And then I'm hoping Q3 onwards next year, iterate and improve. We go into this cycle of people come up with ideas, people come up with improvements, people submit it, people upgrade, and basically we're going into the BAU of the common platform. That's it. Questions? I got bored of the.
Do we have access to that GitHub repo? Is that public now?
It's
Not
shared.
public.
It's shared with the all group in ITV, so you should have access. The other thing as well, I want this to become actually a publicly accessible. There's nothing in here that's ITV confidential. I want this to be something that actually we can show people. Say, hey, we kind of do it pretty well. Here's how we work. I also want it to work with partners. So you say Scale Factory or CloudReach or Bastion. If they can say we're Common Platform certified, our team have worked to V1.4 of the Common Platform, we understand how you build stuff, and we get a contractor in and says, oh, you've worked with the Common Platform before, you're able to fit right in. That's going to be quite useful when we're hiring people. And also we can hopefully use it as a hiring thing. We say, hey, this is a document of how we do stuff. and we're going to have it on our tech blog when we create the tech blog. Shh. Apparently I meant to ask the legal team before I do that. I'm just going to do it. So that's essentially it. Cameron.
As a platform engineer, if I want to introduce something new, how do I do that? Or I can?
Yes, you can. You definitely can. I'm not going to tell you how. You have to find out. You can just like commit in. So
Sure, I heard Tom say it's better to ask forgiveness and seek.
Yeah.
do what I say, but not what I do. Then. So you know the weekly workshop we have, for example, that's the kind of stuff we say. Hey, I found this really cool new tool called Prometheus. I think it could be the next monitoring tool for us. And you basically say, oh, we had to do a bit of investigation into it. We stick it on the R&D list, and after it's prioritised, we say, actually, we do need a new monitoring tool because Sensu, as you're going to find out later on, is bald. And then we do the R&D on it, and it basically kind of comes through. And if you're going to get your cycle in the core team properly as well, and it could be you doing that R&D and actually doing that thing as well. So it's definitely, and it's open to anyone. Like Lee talking about Kavana, it goes onto the list, and obviously it gets prioritised. But it needs to be a constantly evolving platform because otherwise it dies. And so do I. So that's it. Questions? Luke, you have a question. You only just arrived, I'm sure.
No, I have no idea what we're on with.
So the one thing that this is obviously kind of similar to how we do our stuff, right? Because we built a what's called ReadyScale, but it's essentially a common platform that we try and use across all of our customers where we can.
Yep.
And the struggle we have actually is in balancing pure R&D versus things that are deliverable for a customer versus the time that it takes to deliver something for a customer. So we want to be able to fund the R&D with the customer paying us to do things that are new, but we also don't want to introduce unpredictable timelines into a delivery project. How are you managing that in this world?
So I think that's one of the reasons for the creation of the core team is that we historically did R&D in project timelines, which obviously, how long is a piece of string? We had no idea how long it would take. And that kind of like scared project managers because you don't know how long something's going to take. And the idea behind the core team is actually if we have an idea, like Cameron was saying, let's say Prometheus is something we're kind of like looking at, it would go on the list, and actually the core team, it's their responsibility to do the R&D and then kind of come up with the best solution. And the other thing as well, because we're always doing stuff in project timelines, good enough was always good enough. And when this is underpinning everything we do, in my opinion, it's not good enough. Brilliant is like my minimum standard. Fantastic, fabulous. And that's the core team's remit is to do really high quality work because it's going to be used by everyone. In terms of like timelines, if there is a team that say, you know, it needs Cassandra, there's a really, really strong kind of business need for them to kind of have Cassandra, we'd have to see if there's kind of a need across more of ITV because the common platform does allow a platform engineer in a particular team to make an exception, but it's really got to be really carefully considered because you know, it's an exception. One of the rules around simplicity is to aggressively reduce variance. We want it to look the same everywhere we look. It even says, you know, the monitoring endpoint should be under status dot product because wherever you look, it's consistent. It's always status dot. It's always status dot. But yeah, so I mean, we try to get the R&D out of the project timelines, but then make it so that the core team is a fun place to be, but everyone gets their stint in the core team rather than it being an ivory tower. Any more questions?
In the evening when you go home, do you look a little bit like that? Dress up in a bib and tucker? And
I do actually, yeah. I think I've probably got a few more wrinkles these days, and so no, I do. That's why I have a nice stiff drink. Cool, okay, any more questions around this?
If we want to use one of the services, is it just a matter of speaking to the platform engineer on the team?
Yep.
So something like Graphite?
Yep.
Using it?
You should have it already. You've got Grafana in your stack yet?
No, you won't yet.
Okay, so it will be. So the new CDM, part of the base stack that we'll kind of deploy for any kind of platform, Sensu, Graphite Grafana, Elk Stack, all those kind of components, that just comes out of the box. What will happen is you just add water, and your standard platform, comes with those bits, and then it's up to you to put your product inside it. So when in the future you will actually just have Graphite and Grafana for free as soon as you kind of hit play. So you'll get that, and you can do whatever you like with them. If you have then a product need for something like CouchDB, which is part of the standard, like it's our recommended document store. If you say, hey, we could do it with a document store, we've got CouchDB kind of ready to go if you need it.
So we're going to move our Sensu servers into the slightly new framework.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, the stuff that you've been doing so far is that Sensu is our recommended monitoring tool, and Graphite, Grafana, etc. That's, I imagine, the next. It's on your list. It's on the list.
Yeah.
So it'll have, what this will evolve into is actually as part of the spec is like that baseline platform. What that should look like. You'll get a Graphite server here. You'll get this, that, the other here. Here's your kind of your baseline common platform. And the idea is that actually you can check out a GitHub, hit play, and point it at a Playground account, and you could have your own one that's up and running, which you can mess around with. And we'd like to share that with other, as in like outside of the business, so you can see, hey, this is how ITV does stuff. It's quite cool. I hope. I think so. I would. Anything else? Cool. Good. Okay. Just want water. Next up, terribly exciting. I think so. I went to all these fun conferences, so you don't have to. That's fun. One second. There we go. Cool. So, I got the date right this, I got the year right this time. Good stuff. Very professional. Good. Okay, so I was lucky enough to go to 2 conferences last month. I'm taking advantage of being permanent for the first time in my life. And even then, it's not easy to go to conferences, apparently. Who knew? So I went to one called DevSecCon. It's basically developers, security, and operations. Everyone knows DevOps. Everyone knows why we're doing DevOps. Security's always been that guy or girl in the corner of the room saying, you must do this, you must do this. No, you can't do this, no. And it's gone from ops being the people saying no to security being people that are saying no. You've got to fill in this form. You've got to tell me why you want port 80 open to the internet for your website. It's like, gee, I just can't think. And this is actually the security people. The people I met there, most of the audience were security people wanting to get into this because they are the smart security people, like, the smart who want to automate stuff and they want to test stuff and they want to codify stuff and they want to kind of do this stuff well. And it's really fascinating. Literally half the room put up, we're all security specialists, but we want to do this. So the main thing that I kind of took out of it was standards. There are tons of standards out there that exist that we're not aware of, like the whole OWASP stuff. We're all familiar with the OWASP top 10. There's a whole load of other stuff on there that I wasn't familiar with, and loads of tools as well, which we can start using as well. And we need to start putting that into our design docs for our software that says, you've got to satisfy this. Because otherwise, how will they know that they've got to satisfy that unless you tell them? Because not everyone knows everything, unless we start documenting what we should start thinking about. For example, is like kind of user registration. At the beginning of that, we should have been saying, these are the things we always need to be looking out for. And
automated security testing was one of the first cards there, but also one of the first to go post-November.
Yeah. and I think
hard to put it out of scope.
And that's a really interesting thing. I think it kind of obviously you've got a different controller now who can understand like the operational kind of side of stuff. But I would like to hope this starts coming down much more from Mark Smith's level, because
I've also met with Enrico, the new InfoSec manager.
He's really good.
I think he's really big on this as well.
Yeah.
We've gone beyond talking about whether we should do it to what tools we should be using.
And that's exactly it. So because the thing that worries me most about all the products I'm going to be hosting is Marple, it's GTVAP, it's the placement for artist payment system, it's this massive old mainframe. It's a thing that pays Ant and Deck. It's got their bank account details and their home addresses in it. And that's going to host on the common platform, so I really want them to do quite well. So it still surprises me slightly that we're not as hard as we possibly should be. The other is kind of obvious, infrastructure and platform tests. We all do that now as part of the platform engineering team. We write kind of service spec and aspect. We write those tests to say, once you've done this, the following should be true. But there's no reason why you can't do that for security. Once you've built this server, it should not be listening on port 23, telnet. It should not be running this. We should go to a port scan. It should only be listening on port 80 because it's a web server. What software is installed? Has it kind of got a root? All those things. It's not difficult to do, but we need to start kind of thinking about how it kind of goes as well. Another one, Lee just mentioned security in the pipeline. We have this thing that we think that going to NCC at the end of a project and getting them to do a pen test and they sign it off, great, it's secure. I've just done another commit the day after and I've introduced an SQL vulnerability into this kind of thing. It's not good enough anymore. So we finally got performance into our pipeline, but we need to start getting security into our pipeline. And it's not saying that because that test was green, it's perfect, but there's so many things, like the 90% of kind of stuff that we could cover off with those tests, that okay, at least you validated that. And it means you can focus on the 10% that's left. And that's when maybe you get a manual pen test done. The tools do exist right now, but they're pretty hairy, but they are improving. And I think we could potentially be on the forefront of that kind of revolution of tools. And I think we need to be, because otherwise we're going to be the next talk. And like I said, they lost 33% of their value as a result of that kind of thing. That would make Adam Crozier very unhappy. It should be a big shame. Another one we've talked about is a mutable infrastructure. The idea is that once you've done something, it can't possibly be changed anymore. It's actually impossible even for us as engineers to change it. Right now we have a number of servers. We do treat them like cattle. They're all out there on AWS, but we still kind of upgrade in place. We don't care if they get wiped out because we can spin them up very easily, but we are kind of upgrading in place. There's this kind of concept of a mutable infrastructure where whether it's an AMI or whether it's a container, in a very, very super secure central core, you create a container of your application that has all the bits it needs to do, and then you kind of push it out into the kind of the system. And it doesn't run SSH. You can't connect into it. It emits logs. You can see how it breaks, but you can't connect into it. And even if someone somehow gets into it and does a vulnerability that allows them to write to the file system itself is read-only. It's impossible to actually write any files to it. And even if somehow they got past that, you're constantly replacing it every time you do a release. There's no place to get a foothold in. It's like if you have a castle and people are trying to attack your castle, but every time there's a new castle you're building to the side that you're constantly moving into. So by the time they've finally broken into, you have 10 castles down the road. So Jasper, like the head of our cybersecurity, really likes this idea because it means actually he doesn't need to worry about the platform so much. He can concentrate on the application. So it's quite exciting. Another interesting one was the software supply chain. People know what a bill of materials is. You build a car, you know how many bolts you need, you know how many windows you need, how many seats you need. Someone was talking about a bill of materials for your software because 90% or more of the software that we write isn't written by us. If you're writing open source software and you're using this library that requires this library that requires this library, do you actually know where that came from? Do you know how many CVEs were raised against those particular kind of like modules or products or inclusions last year? Do you check? Does anyone check? He kind of brought up some stats around some really kind of commonly used modules, which I forget the name of, but so many of them had like pretty critical security vulnerabilities in the past couple of years. Some of them have a really bad track record of having bad security vulnerabilities. So do you use those? No. Does it make sense to use them is the question, I suppose.
I think this was in the past a unspoken rule that the sysadmin had to do. Be the person that's listed on 10 million mailing lists.
Yeah, just to keep an eye on everything.
Every 20
And
months.
he actually had a tool that you could actually put in basically your bill of materials, and he would actually kind of do an analysis of like how risky your software is, because it goes through the entire dependency tree, which is quite cool. So the summary of DevSecCon, it was great to see what's out there. It's still early days, but it looks really positive. Next up was Velocity. It's the world's #1 DevOps conference. Obviously, ITV being a premier DevOps over there, along with all these cool people. Many of whom I got to meet, some really interesting kind of smart people there as well, and some like really motivational, inspirational kind of practitioners there as well, like people like John Allspaw from Etsy. Most of the DevOps guys in the room, they know Etsy. We kind of look up to them as the people who do DevOps really well. It's kind of really cool to see them speak and how they think about stuff. Prometheus, cool monitoring tool from SoundCloud. I went to an all-day workshop with them. It's really, really cool. It's much better than some of the stuff we do right now. It doesn't quite mesh with how I think apps should be monitored, but it's not really my call to make. Quite exciting. Guy from Google talked about the physical web. That's basically Bluetooth Low Energy QR codes. So rather than going up to a poster and having to get your camera out and looking like a idiot, you take a photo of the QR code. You basically just walk up and you can be near it, swipe down, and you can see all of the kind of the Bluetooth Low Energy tags that are around you. So you walk up to a parking meter, and he gave a demo of walking up to a parking meter, swiping down, hit $2 and pay, and then just walking away, which is really quite cool actually. Event streams. What the theme that I got away was we're generating so much data now, it's actually not realistic to store it for particularly long and then query it periodically. You actually need to be doing a constant analysis of the stream of data as it kind of goes through to look at all the stats. But you need to build a pipeline for that. So a lot of the kind of people out there were actually saying, whether it's Kinesis, whether it's Kafka, whatever, it kind of goes into one pipeline, and then you can attach into it and say, I would like to know about these events, and I'll increment this counter when I see certain things and do certain things when it happens. We've actually kind of had this, for a few years at ITV. I mean, Andy, you mentioned Splunk. Ape and Pez were basically a stream of events about everything that's happening in terms of the player and some of our more legacy apps at ITV. It's a really cool thing, and like John and I, we were using this kind of like many, many years ago when we first started working together. It's really powerful, but we just need to kind of get it more into ITV. Burnout. This was kind of a really interesting one to kind of watch. It was kind of fascinating. I didn't quite kind of realise quite what it meant before, I guess. So if you have dysfunctional attitudes towards work, exhaustion, loss of motivation, distress, and feelings of ineffectiveness, a compulsion to prove oneself, working harder, neglecting your needs, displacement of conflicts, and all this kind of stuff. You're probably burnt out, which I hadn't quite realised before. Or apparently like, the 21st century working environment. But there was a lot of people kind of like nodding in the room when they were talking about this kind of stuff, and it made me realise that you need something like, the work-life balance. I was working. Yeah, the irony of writing this slide at midnight last night does not escape me. So it's something that I'm going to address. I think getting the version of the spec out has been a long slog, but I'm going to chill out for a little bit now, for the rest of the afternoon at least. Talking about event streams and monitoring statistical anomaly detection. Who here thinks it's cool that Sensu can basically say it works or it doesn't work and nothing else? It's pretty terrible. It's so sensitive. As soon as anything goes wrong, it goes, oh my god, I'm off fire. No, I'm fine. Like, that's not how we should be doing it anymore, and that's not how most people are heading now. So there's a whole load of stats, this whole field of mathematics called statistics, that allows you to look at data and see is something anomalous. We're not doing any of that. Ours is literally a binary yes or no. There's so many kind of cool things we can do if we start kind of collecting that data and say, actually, given this trend of ITV player traffic, that is weird now, that is anomalous, we need to react. Or actually, it's 4 in the morning, it's meant to go that low, or it's now 8 o'clock at night, it's meant to go that high. We need to kind of like start thinking about it in the future, because it's gonna really start annoying us. The more and more systems we alert on, the better.
I think people like Etsy have solved these kind of problems in the past, but you can't just take their solution like you would take Sensu, because these solutions are not as simple and just plug it in.
No, but there are some tools.
The company allows for some R&D.
Yeah, but Etsy stuff, there's stuff like the Skyline and Kayla and stuff. So that's kind of quite specific to them. But there are people out there now actually building things that actually are more. It's like the Sensu of stats and analysis that we can start. Yeah.
So which tools were they talking about? I think like Ryman and.
Yeah, and a Hacker is another one that's kind of quite cool as well. It's in Go, so it must be cool.
Right. Well, Ryman's Clojure, but you have to configure it with Clojure. So I'm looked at it going.
No. Yeah.
Life's too short to learn that language.
Hacker's from Mozilla, and actually it really fits my model of how monitoring should work. It'd be worth checking out. HTTP2, or H2 as apparently they're calling it. Really interesting kind of chat from people from Google. It used to be called Speedy, it's now been ratified into H2. So it is the future, obviously, of HTTP. The cool thing is it's easy to implement. From our side, it's a config chain, and the client will negotiate up to it or down to H2 1.1 if it can't. The main changes, it is now a binary protocol, so no more just like sniffing on the wire and seeing what's happening. Obviously there's trade-offs there. It's kind of, do you optimize for the common case or the uncommon case? And there will be a whole lot of tools that come out of the system to inspect what's going on, but it is going to become a binary protocol for efficiency. All the headers are going to be compressed. He gave an example of like 2 requests, and he said actually, if you look at the request headers between these, the only thing that's changed is the URI. Everything else was the same. So what HTTP2 or H2 will start doing is actually tagging all those headers up and say, actually, refer to what I told you last time, it hasn't changed. It's basically the diff, a rolling diff of the headers. Next is that because it supports multiple streams in a single connection, a load of the old H1.1 patterns become anti-patterns. So for static assets, for example, you would have A.static, B.static, C.static, so you could connect multiple times. That actually like slows the whole system down. You should now have one and let it connect, and it'll do the logic of bringing up as many streams as it can to kind of like pull stuff down.
Inlining is becoming redundant.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So there's a load of like anti-patterns now that used to be patterns. So it's worth checking out, but it's not difficult to adopt. It's the cool stuff. This doesn't really affect us so much because I know we talk about becoming a global business, but probably not in the way that this guy was talking about. He drew a circle around China, Indonesia, and India, and said like, that's where your future users are coming from. Like most of the world is saturated with kind of like the internet products now, and this is the guy from Opera, and they are the biggest browser in the developing world. And he actually kind of says that actually page weight now, like we pay apparently 1% of our mobile phone bill goes, so 1% of our income or so goes on our data plan for our mobile phone. In some countries it's 20%. And he said like, if you load, it's something like this, but if you load CNN a couple of times a day in Mexico, you'd have to work 30 hours a month to be able to do that because the page weight the initial one is like 25 meg. So you can translate the kind of the complexity and weight of your page into working hours in some countries. And they've done some really, really cool stuff to kind of bring like kind of the flashy web and simplify it down, compress it down, and then send it down the wire to a really like simple like feature phone in Indonesia. So it's really kind of exciting stuff, and it was more inspiring. It doesn't really affect our business, but it's actually really kind of cool, inspiring talk.
10 videos up to how.
So the cool thing about Velocity, I got the gold pass, which gives us videos of the entire thing. So I haven't been sent the link yet, but all of these ones are going to be available online for us to kind of view. But this one's definitely worth it. It was kind of like a almost like standing ovation style stuff because it's just so inspirational. I mean, obviously, Opera are doing what Facebook are doing. They're trying to build their next customer base. Facebook are talking about kind of having floating balloons all over the world to bring internet to them. They just want to access more customers. And Opera are doing the same thing. They're making their product accessible to a whole market that Chrome and Mozilla and IE just are ignoring. They're making their own market, which is kind of remarkable. And then another stat analysis talk, because that was a really big kind of theme there as well. So in summary, it was a really good conference. It was fascinating. Ilyas and I had a great time. We got very frustrated with the queuing strategy for the boat tour around Amsterdam. We almost got on the boat 3 times, and they didn't understand queuing over there. We got very frustrated. At least I did. So, and that was essentially it. There we go. Done. So you managed to listen to me speak pretty much non-stop for 50 minutes. That's almost a record for me. And you're all still here. Yeah, you deserve some Quality Street, and I like a pint as well. But so again, I know it's slightly dry. Normally the forums are slightly more exciting than this. Speaking of which, actually, if anyone would like to speak, especially from the dev side, I'd really love to kind of hear that. And the other thing is, well, opening it up to not just DevOps, not just tech. I mean, like Ilyas is keen to do a talk on aviation technology, for example, which fascinates me because actually you notice a lot of kind of crossover around things like monitoring and alerting, for example. There's so much like prior art in monitoring and alerting in the cockpit that we just ignore. Hey, we're going to reinvent the wheel over here. They've done decades of work on what should be prioritized and all this kind of stuff that we're basically ignoring. And it's the same with when like lean. That came from Toyota in the manufacturing system. So Kanban as an approach and all that kind of working process, that came from manufacturing. So I think there's a whole load of stuff out there that we should be looking at and trying to steal, basically. It's a good way to do. Cool. Any kind of questions about the conferences?
How many talks did you go to that didn't mention Docker?
There was quite Docker heavy. But then there's the usual how many people are running it in production. I think quite a few hands came up, but there was a debate at the end, Gareth Rushgrove and someone else, but they were forced to speak on opposing sides. So Gareth Rushgrove had to say how he really loved Docker, but he hates it. So it's quite entertaining to force someone to speak about, it'd be like forcing Andy to kind of speak about how he enjoys working with Tom Clark. He'd be like, oh, he's just okay. So thank you everyone for your time, and same time later this month because we had to bump this one. So cool. Thank you everyone.